and welcome to 580 Sports Talk. Little subdued version of 580 Sports Talk today. We are live from Des Moines and Wells Fargo Arena in the capital city of Iowa, host site for the first weekend of the NCAA tournament. Brendan Dorzinski and Dan Lucero here with you for the next couple of days as we follow along with Kate. Well, we assume the next couple of days. I assume KU is going to win tomorrow over Howard, but we'll get into that coming up here in just a few minutes. This is a big deal, and if you've been following 580 Sports Talk for years at this point, you know that it is a big deal that I am on the radio in the media work area of an NCAA tournament event.
Yes, Brendan, I need to stop you right now and say that you are being extremely loud.
I have been told that many times.
You are being extremely loud, and I can actually tell you on the air that instead of leaving you a note with the word extremely in all caps, I can just tell you off rip that you are being extremely loud.
Am I actually?
No, you're not.
Okay.
No, your volume is totally fine. No, we've got a Sato voiced 580 Sports Talk coming your way today, so that we do not make enemies of the entire press corps. So far, so good, but the night is young. This table is the radio work area, represents the radio work area that if you are watching the YouTube stream, you can see over my, I guess that's my right shoulder, that it says radio work area. So we are where we are supposed to be, and we are doing what we are supposed to do, which is bringing you Sports Talk live from Des Moines for the next 2.5 hours at the Wells Fargo Arena, site of the first and second rounds of the NCAA tournament. And there is no greater 4 days in sports than the first 2 rounds of the NCAA tournament, and it is truly our pleasure and privilege to be here, bringing you Sports Talk for the next, we hope, 3 days.
And, of course, as we are doing coverage of the NCAA tournament, it's a great time to remind you that our tournament coverage is brought to you on the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship, located at the intersection of I-470 and Fair Lawn in the capital city of Kansas. Buy local, buy Lewis. That is Lewis Toyota, and the Road to a Championship here on 580 WIBW and FM 104.9. We obviously have a ton of NCAA tournament to get to today. We heard Norm Roberts speak. Yes, that is significant. It is Norm Roberts and not Bill Self, who spoke earlier today. So we'll talk about that coming up here in a little bit. Also, Jalen Wilson spoke, as did DeJuan Harris. We're going to hear from the two of them coming up later on this hour. We've got some audio from their press conferences earlier today to talk about. We'll talk about the matchup with Howard. That is all coming up over the course of the next hour, along with a round of One Gotta Go on this Wednesday afternoon. We've also got a lot of NFL to get to today. If this was any other week of the year, or at least not the NCAA tournament time of year, we would easily be leading the show with the fact that JuJu Smith-Schuster is not coming back to the Kansas City Chiefs. That is something of a shock, I think, to a lot of folks. I know it is to me. So we're going to get to that coming up a little bit later on. The Chiefs also did add to their defense, though, Charles Omenihu, formerly of the San Francisco 49ers. He is now the newest Kansas City Chief on the defensive side of the ball. So we'll get to some NFL news and notes later on in the show today. Tim Fitzgerald is also going to join us after a week off last week because of the state basketball tournament. Fitz is going to join us to talk all things K-State coming up today on the Azura Credit Union Wildcat Wrap-Up. We've also got our 580 Sports Talk headlines. What is wrong with you? As I mentioned, One Gotta Go. All coming up on this edition of 580 Sports Talk. We're also off a little bit early today because we've got more First Four action coming up tonight. Some great games last night. Pitt knocking off Mississippi State. We also had Corpus Christi, Texas A&M, Corpus Christi with a win over SEMO.
You know why they're called the Islanders, by the way? That campus is on an island.
Is it physically on an island?
Yes, like the campus is its own island. It's
interesting.
Dope. Yeah.
My wife asked me yesterday, why are they the Islanders if they're in Corpus Christi? I said, well, there's island, Padre Island is right there. I just figured there's islands nearby. I did not know they were literally on an island.
Yeah, whole campus, I think, is like self-contained on one little island.
Huh, fascinating. Yeah. I had no idea.
Shout out to Tamkaka, our winners from last night.
Yeah, good win for them.
Yeah, first ever NCAA tournament win.
So we're off a little bit early today because we've got Texas Southern versus Fairleigh Dickinson, as well as, and don't remind me of the other game, Arizona State versus Nevada coming up a little bit later on tonight. So we're off at 5:30 again here on 580 WIBW. Despite the fact that we are on the road, we would love for you to maintain your normal place on our show on the text line. 785-272-9429 is the text line number. And, of course, you can chime in on the YouTube comments as well. A little bit of a different setup on the YouTube today. I've got all sorts of space by me. I'm a big leaner in the chair. I very rarely keep the feet on the floor. That was always a problem when I was a kid in school. Dan's got the work area sign over his shoulder. Kyle is on the stream as well. Kyle helping us out back at the 580 studios on Huntoon Hill today. So we'd love for you to be a part of the show. Do not forget, by the way, on our website, 580WIBW.com, our Bracket Mayhem Challenge is still live. We would love for you to be a part of the competition. We had a bunch of people who signed up yesterday, which was awesome to see. You can sign up. It is free to play. You can compete against myself, against Dan, against everyone else who is participating in it. Jake and Fulton, I know, are both in it, and you can try to get bragging rights over us. Maybe we'll have bragging rights over you. And if you get a perfect bracket, you've got a chance at a $1 million grand prize. So head to our website. That's 580wibw.com. Left side of the homepage, there's a green square that says Basketball Mayhem. Click on that, and that is where you can enter our bracket contest for today. Did you pick the first 4 games, by the way, on your bracket?
I typically do. Now, I don't believe that is an option on our bracket Mayhem, but no, I typically do, and I went 1 for 2 last night.
Okay.
I correctly identified Tamkaka as the winner of the 16 seed game, but I thought Mississippi State would win. I thought they would beat Pitt. I thought they should have beaten Pitt. They got the most wide open 3-pointer in the history of basketball to try and beat Pitt, and then you remembered why they are a 28% 3-point shooting team on the season.
Yeah, and then they had a tip back try too.
Yeah,
an open look right hand tip back.
Yeah, they did.
Couldn't get it done. I had Pitt. I have Pitt winning another game too, so I was very happy to see the Panthers hold on in that one. So we'll talk more NCAA tournament throughout the course of the show today. But Dan, of course, we've got to start things off with right here in Des Moines. KU taking on Howard coming up tomorrow. That's a 1 o'clock tip, so the game will end right around 3, right as we are getting ready to go on the air with a 580 Sports Talk. And we were a little bit late today. We got in this morning. We missed the Howard introductory press conferences, players, coaches, all of that. But we're here for KU. We saw a little bit of the Howard practice as well. And we'll touch on the Bison coming up in a little bit. I wanted to ask, because I know I followed this KU team last year when they won the national championship, and they were locked in, and it felt like a team on a mission, and they had all this positive momentum behind them going into the NCAA tournament. They win the Big 12 tournament. Remy Martin suddenly is playing like the player everyone thought he was going to be. Ochai, obviously. Jalen Wilson was playing his best basketball this time last year. Obviously, you had Brown, you had McCormick, all these guys who were playing so well at the very end of the season. From your perspective, from what we heard from Jalen Wilson and DeJuan Harris today, and again, we'll hear from them coming up in just a little bit, from what we heard from Norm Roberts as we're still trying to figure out, is Bill Self going to coach? Is he not going to coach? What do you make of the level of locked in for this KU team? Like, does this feel like a team to you that is committed to doing absolutely everything they can possibly do to get to a national title? Or do things feel a little bit more tenuous, kind of like the whole bracket does?
Well, I think that if anything will lock in a veteran team, it's getting embarrassed in the conference championship game. And that's what happened to Kansas. I mean, they didn't just lose that game. They didn't just lose a hard-fought game where you shrug and say, that's just kind of the way it goes. Now, they kind of got punked. They lost by 20 to Texas. And that's the second time that's happened against that Texas team in the last week or so. So they should be coming in with an attitude of a chip on their shoulder and feeling a little bit doubted. And they addressed that a little bit in their remarks earlier this afternoon, discussing that, they do feel a little bit hated, or that was the term that DeJuan Harris used, but a little bit hated, a little bit doubted, feeling like, maybe not getting the respect that the defending national champions, a number 1 seed, and a team who won the regular season title of the toughest league in college basketball would maybe be deserving of. So I do think that chip is back on their shoulder a little bit. It has been one of the ongoing themes of this season, particularly in Big 12 play, that if you don't have the edge, the competitive edge on a given night, if you don't play with a desperation, if you don't play with an urgency, with a chip on your shoulder, however you want to phrase it, you are not going to win. You're going to get beat by the team that does. When you get to the NCAA tournament, if you don't have that, you go home. You're done. Your season is over. For Jalen Wilson, your career at Kansas is over. Mm-hmm. The opportunity to defend a national championship, something so rare, hasn't been done in a decade and a half, that's over. So I think that when you combine the factors of a team that suffered in their most recent game a one-sided loss and the factor of that desperation and that urgency that they've had to play with all year just to survive in the Big 12 conference, I would expect this team to be very much locked in, very much ready to go tomorrow. And I think that's going to be reflected in their performance against Howard.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. I think it's actually a positive for this program that they are kind of viewing this as business as usual. And aside from that slump in the middle of the year when Jalen Wilson was the only one scoring, no one else could really do anything offensively. They were just in a funk in general when they took on Baylor and when they lost to K-State. And I'm losing track of who the other loss was, to TCU.
Yeah.
And the fact that that didn't get them down, and they came back and they played really well. They went on a winning streak after that, and they played poorly against Texas in the regular season finale down in Austin, and then they played really well in the first 2 games of the Big 12 tournament. It's pretty clear Texas is just not a good matchup for this KU team, especially when KU does not have Kevin McCullough at its disposal. But I think it is a positive for this team, and you can spin this any number of ways, but I look at it as a positive that it's business as usual, that, hey, it's in the past. We've moved on. We've been through losses before. We've been through adverse situations before. We can overcome this. And that's really something that Norm Roberts has hit on a bunch. Sunday, when he was speaking after the selection show, today he talked about it a little bit too, that, at Kansas, you are always the team to beat. You are always a team.
You get everybody's best shot.
You get everybody's best shot. You've always got the target on your back, whatever phrase you want to use to talk about it like that. And I think that's kind of the mentality that has stuck with specifically Wilson and Harris. I mean, Harris is like, if all the coaches for KU went into a lab and created the mind of a player that fits this program's identity, it's DeJuan Harris to a T, and the competitive nature of Jalen Wilson too. And I know Self has talked a bunch about that and just how much of he's got that dog in him, so to speak. I think it is a positive, though, that this group, they feel like that, they act like that, and they say, hey, so what? We lost to Texas. Okay, move on. Now it's Howard. And after Howard is either going to be Arkansas or Illinois, just keep moving through it. And I also do think, aside from that slump mid-season, KU has never been through a period this year where you think, oh my God, it's just spiraling and it's just falling apart. They cannot get this to work, or they can't click offensively for too long. They can't click defensively for too long. Yeah, the losses have been lopsided, and I know the committee obviously took note of that, but it's not like that has been a, forbearance into, oh my God, this team is going to struggle with X. This team is going to struggle with Y. No, you lose by 18, you just move on. You flush it, you move on. I think that's a positive thing when you get to this point of year. You're not going to keep retaining those things and be bogged down in them. You just say, hey, we won. It's over. We move on. And I think Wilson specifically, having taken on a bigger role this time last year and now being the guy this year, I think he is the perfect guy to try to lead them into a different sort of looking NCAA tournament.
And if you think about it, what program has had to deal with more, I don't want to call them distractions, but let's say outside noise? What program has had to deal with that more than Kansas the last couple of years? Like in even this year, when you think of how this year began with Bill Self not on the sideline, self-imposed, no pun intended, for the last time, suspension that their head coach had to serve early this year. They had to deal with his absence in the Big 12 tournament. They had to deal with some injuries, Kevin McCullough not being available for the Big 12 championship game. And their attitude through it all has been very much, hey, this is something for us to overcome. They're no strangers to adversity. They're not afraid of it. They don't back down from it. They attack it. That's their mindset. That's a championship mindset. It's why they've already won one championship this year, the Big 12 regular season. It's why a lot of people think that they can win another one, that they can make a run deep in this tournament, be holding up the big trophy again in Houston when the confetti comes down in April. So I think this has proven to be a team that is able to overcome adversity over the long haul. This will be the question, and what will, I think, be really telling, because as we've mentioned, you just brought up, Kansas's losses this year were all pretty one-sided affairs. And now they got some big comebacks in games too. Like you recall before the big home blowout loss to TCU, they fell behind in similar fashion at home to Oklahoma State. Yeah. Came back and won that game. And they fell behind in similar fashion to Oklahoma. Maybe not as many points, but they were down double digits late in that game, and they came back and won it. Obviously, they were down big to Baylor late in the year, and they came back and they won that game at home. But I think there has been at times this year for this Kansas team, when they have gotten behind really good and also tough basketball teams, that they have wilted a little bit. I think the Big 12 championship was an example of that. I think the TCU game was an example. They fought hard to get close, but then TCU delivered a knockout blow. I think that the regular season finale against Texas is an example of this. When they get down, sometimes there's a tendency for them to kind of look and say, hey, this just isn't our night for whatever reason. That's not something you can afford to do in this tournament. So they have to have the mindset of the team that made the rally against Oklahoma State, made the rally against Baylor. We know that that's in them. Again, that's just part of championship pedigree, championship toughness, and the kind of attitude that Bill Self instills in and demands of his players.
And I think that kind of connects and is juxtaposed interestingly with something that DeJuan Harris was asked about today. And the point about, hey, what is it like to then play different teams finally? You've been playing this grind of a Big 12 season. You've played everyone twice. You've played some teams 3 times. You played Texas 3 times. You played TCU 3 times. And they played, who did they play in the opener? Texas Tech 3 times. You played all these teams so many times at this point. Is there a benefit to now being outside of the conference, to playing other teams, to seeing different programs? And again, I think this is something you can spin both ways. One, well, you would rather play a bunch of teams because you know them. You know exactly what to expect from Kansas State or from Texas or from Baylor or whoever. You know exactly what to expect. On the other side, it's boring after a while. We hear on the high school side of things all the time from Rick Peterson, right, that, hey, I hate February because we've seen these matchups before. This is nothing new. We're all waiting for the postseason. Yeah. We're waiting for something to change. I think there's an element of that to college basketball too. And DeJuan Harris said this, that, hey, look, we've played all these teams so many times already. We've been through this before. It's going to be fun to see Howard. It's going to be fun to see Arkansas or Illinois. These are teams that we don't normally see. We haven't played before this year, although Illinois they did scrimmage against, but in a real game they haven't played. So I think you can spin that in a positive way and say, hey, maybe this team's going to be rejuvenated a little bit by playing some different teams and some different faces.
Getting outside the Big 12 conference. Yeah, that could be beneficial for them. And I wanted to point this out from the text line. I thought this was a pretty funny comment from the 785 on the text line that as a KU fan, I got to say this team has a unique ability to make us believe that nobody believes in them. And look, I think
great ones do.
Yes, that's a commonality of great teams. I mean, let's go back to college football with the Georgia Bulldogs, preseason top 5 consensus in every poll in the country. If people weren't picking them to win the SEC, they were picked to finish second in the SEC. And yet, what were they saying after they beat TCU into a paste in the championship game? Talking about people didn't think we could do it again. They were the defending national champions. They had brought so much back. They were projected to be a top 3 team in the country and be back in the playoff by just about everybody. Yep. And yet even they had that chip on their shoulder, that idea that nobody thinks we're good. We have something to prove. We have a chip on our shoulder. I think this Kansas team has that. I think that I sense that in the answers that Jalen Wilson and DeJuan Harris gave, that the fact that they didn't get seeded above Houston, so they didn't get the Kansas City regional, the Midwest regional, the fact that they didn't finish the job in the Big 12 championship game. I know a lot of the national pundits are looking at the West region and saying this is going to be Gonzaga's region, or this is going to be UCLA's region. A lot of people really like UConn. A lot of people are picking UConn, the 4 seed, to potentially get through this region. I think Kansas has taken note of that. And I think that when they say this time around nobody believes in them, there's a little more of a whiff of truth to it than there was for the Georgia Bulldogs football team. But I certainly think that's an element. And I think that's something that, again, the great teams are able to conjure it even when it's not there so much. And this Kansas group has proven that they've got some winners on this team, and they got some guys who burn to compete and burn to win, and Jalen Wilson is tops above that. And if there's a player in this tournament that's capable of putting a team on his back and making a deep tournament run because he just won't let his team lose, Jalen Wilson's got that feel to him as much as any player in the country.
And two, I mean, you look at coaching for motivation, like Kirby Smart clearly proved that he is a master motivator when we heard all that from the Bulldogs after they won the national championship in college football. You don't think Bill Self or Norm Roberts or Curtis Townsend or someone is saying, I know you saw SportsCenter last night. I know you saw what all the metrics said about you guys. I know you're on Twitter. I know you see all these things. I know you're getting texts. Like, people don't believe in you. That's a motivation tactic. And I don't know exactly what these guys respond to one thing versus another, but I'm sure that has come up in practice or on the bus or some other time. I'm sure that has popped up. Real quick before we get to a timeout, Howard, we saw them practice today. They shoot threes. They shoot a buttload of threes, to be honest. Their entire practice was essentially stand in the corner, take a pass, and shoot.
They have attempted more three-pointers this year than free throws, which is an amazing stat.
That seems impossible. That truly seems impossible. That reminds me of a team that wasn't as good as this Howard team is, but of a Texas Southern team that KU played in 2018 when Texas Southern played their first 11 games all the way from home. And they said, hey, look, we need these bye games, and it's going to prepare us for the SWAC schedule. And I believe they won the SWAC that year. And all they did was chuck threes, and they competed with a couple of good teams. Then they came to Allen Fieldhouse. Devontae Graham scored 35 points, and they killed them. But that's what teams like this do. That was just a team that was chucking just to try to stay relevant. Howard won 22 games this year with that approach. I mean, this is not I know the conference competition they play in the MEAC isn't very good, but that's not a bad shooting team. This isn't an untalented, lucky number 16 overall seed. They've got some talent. They've got a plan, and that's better than you can say for some teams.
And they've got a good coach. I got a lot of time for Kenny Blakeney and his experience. It's not a super experienced team. You look at their starting lineup. You got sophomore, freshman, junior, and redshirt junior. So you don't have a lot of veterans. And to be fair, Kansas isn't a super veteran team in every facet. But this Howard team, they're pretty young, and that can be an advantage. You don't know what you don't know, right? And you don't you don't know to be scared sometimes. You don't know that you're supposed to be the 16 seed and go get beat. So I can definitely see this team playing confidently, and they'll be well coached and they'll play with a lot of freedom. But my expectation for this Howard team is that, if the 3-pointers are falling, they can put a scare into Kansas. But if they come out and they go 0 for 5 from 3 or start 1 of 8 from behind the arc, they can find themselves in a ditch pretty early. And I think Kansas will come out lacking a desire to play with their food. We've seen Kansas do that. We've seen 1 seeds do that historically. Yeah. It's only ever been one of them all time. What's up, Virginia? What's up, Tony Bennett?
1 and 147 is the number now.
Yes. So, but I do feel like that a team that just wants to kind of bomb it is not the kind of team that I think is going to put, unless, again, they shoot it like crazy, is not the kind of team that's really equipped to put a serious scare into Kansas. Kansas, I think, can defend the 3-point line, can run guys off the line. They're smart, connected defensively. They rotate well. I don't think they're going to have to double the post, double any of their big guys necessarily. They don't have a superstar in the post. They got a little size, 6'9" and 6'10" up front. Steve Settle III might be their best player, all conference second team guy, but he's not a guy you're going to have to send a double team after and leave a shooter open. So I think the matchup plays out pretty well for Kansas.
I think this is the kind of game where McCullough and Harris can feast. I really do. You got to run this team off the 3-point line. You got to beat them by not allowing them open shots. That sounds like the kind of game that Bill Self would love to coach, and that sounds like the kind of game that those two are going to be primed for. You, again, cannot understate how big it is that McCullough is back. That is such a big deal for this team, really, on both ends of the floor.
When you watch him in the Big 12 championship game without him, it just, none of the lineups made sense. Like, none of the combinations of 5 really fit together. When Seth Davis of The Athletic had his all glue guys team, like the best glue guys in the country. And we've all heard that phrase applied to basketball players, the guys that kind of glue everything together. Kevin McCullough was the glue guy of the year for him. And it makes all the sense in the world. And if you watch Kansas with him, and then you watch that Big 12 game, championship game without him, you know exactly why.
We've got a question. I believe it's a question from Sam in the YouTube comments, and appreciate everyone who's watching along on YouTube and, of course, listening here on the Sports Voice of Kansas. Sam just says 22 points with a question mark. That's the spread right now.
Yeah, 22 and a half.
I like how you cover that. I do. I think teams that shoot the 3, that's how you stay close in NCAA tournament games, but talent-wise, this matchup's not close.
Yeah, there's a lot more talent for Kansas, and I think they're going to come out a little bit stung. I don't think they're going to come out, fat and happy off of a bunch of wins in a row. I think this is going to be a motivated team, like we've talked about, and I think that they will cover that spread. Also, shout out to Sam for saying that we've got our NPR volume going today, which again, we're in a crowded media room, and we're just trying not to upset anybody or get anybody to write Brendan a real threatening note. So we're trying to keep it. It's a bit of a work in progress, so bear with us if one of us is quieter than the other. We'll get it balanced out as we go here today and over the next couple of days, but do bear with us. We appreciate you tuning in and enjoying the program today.
We are going to take our first break here on this On the Road edition of 580 Sports Talk. We're going to come on back and play some One Gotta Go later on this hour. We'll also hear from DeJuan Harris and from Jalen Wilson. They spoke at the dais earlier on today here in Des Moines. That's all coming up on this first hour edition of 580 Sports Talk.
disgusting. I'm going to kill you. Give me $200.
Well, gotta go.
Back on 580 Sports Talk on this Wednesday afternoon. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucera with you. Kyle Manthe back at the 580 studios on Huntoon Hill running the show today. We are live from the NCAA tournament in Des Moines. As you can see, the media work area behind us if you're watching on YouTube, and you can hear our NPR voice in action a little bit as Sam on the YouTube comments put it if you're listening on 580 WIBW. Yeah, we've got the
trying to point
area
to it. I'm not very good at it.
Yes.
I'm not a TV person.
Yeah, so if you're a columnist for USA Today, make sure you see that first before you hand us any notes today. Let's play a little one gotta go. I'm going to go with the reverse one gotta go today. So
Okay.
I'm going to give you 4. You have to pick which one you would want.
Okay.
And it's your biggest free agent wide receivers. We're going to talk about JuJu Smith-Schuster a little bit later on. He is leaving the Chiefs for the Patriots. So of the best free agents available this year, and it's not a great class, JuJu, the still unsigned Adam Thielen, Allen Lazard, and Jacoby Myers. Those are your 4 options. Who would you most like to have on your team?
I think that's an easy answer, JuJu Smith-Schuster. And the reason that he's an easy answer for me, big body, can play the slot, got enough speed to play outside, good enough blocker to help you in the run game and the screen game, and still only 26. So I know there are some concerns maybe long-term about the knee that was kind of acting up towards the end of the season. And obviously he's had some injury concerns before that as well. But I think he's the most complete receiver on that list of guys. I mean, Adam Thielen's had a great career, but he's on the wrong side of 30 now, I believe. And am I wrong?
No, I believe you are correct about that. Sorry, see, this is the fun thing about having the YouTube feed now. We have someone in the comment section whose display name is just Dank the Memer.
Shout out to Dank the Memer.
Yeah,
thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, Matt, Jeffrey, Sam, everybody else who's in the YouTube comments. Dank the Memer. Love the name. Absolutely. So I got distracted there momentarily. But no, he is on the wrong side of 30. I think 32, I think.
Yeah, 32 years. 32 years old. And he'll be 33 before this next season kicks off. So, yeah, great player, great career. Am I getting that version of Adam Thielen if I get him now? I don't think that I am. And Myers and Lazard, I think, are not quite as multidimensional and help you. I don't think they help you as many ways as JuJu Smith-Schuster, which is why I was really surprised to see that JuJu got the same money that Lazard and Myers got, and made me wonder if maybe there are some broader concerns about his injury history and his future than I would have realized.
And we'll get to that more a little bit coming up later on in the show. I would go with JuJu as well here. I think there is a situation, depending on need, where the answer might be a Jacoby Myers. If you say, hey, we need a slot, we need the new slot possession receiver. We need a guy who we can reliably throw to for 8 yards, 9 yards at a time. Don't need a ton more than that. That's all we need to get to. We need that guy. I can understand then saying Jacoby Myers is our guy because he's relatively cheap. He's not very big. He can fit a specific thing. But if you're just talking receiver in general, I would take JuJu too. I think I would order it JuJu, Lazard, Thielen, Myers in that order, but you can flip those middle two, and I'd still be fine with it.
Yeah, I think I have Thielen last again. Like,
the age is a concern.
Better career than all those guys, but he's about to be 33, and we've only ever seen him do it with one quarterback he's had a really good rapport with.
Also true.
So my one got to go today. We are in the media refreshment area here at the Wells Fargo Arena, and they have some free snacks laying around.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the free snacks that you get at a hospitality room or a refreshment area, as it's termed here, are the same. So I'm going to give you 4 staples of a media refreshment area, and one of them's got to go. White popcorn, Chex Mix, trail mix, and the bag of cookies. One got to go.
Cookie's going to stay.
Okay, cookies are staying? Does it depend on the cookie?
No, it really doesn't.
All right, I respect that. They had Nutter Butters and Oreos over there.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get like the grandma's cookies too. Like that's always a solid choice.
I think they had those behind the pay counter over here.
Yeah, those are behind a paywall.
Those are the good ones. I think I'm going to go trail mix. I've got a hot take for you. Trail mix, Chex Mix. You throw anything mix, I'm usually going to pass on it. But I would rather do Chex Mix than a trail mix.
See, trail mix does have raisins, which is a huge concern because raisins are not great.
Yeah, it's
not my favorite thing in the world. But you have enough like M&Ms and nuts to go with the raisins, kind of offsets the raisininess of it. And now trail mix will give you a little bit of a jolt, a boost, a juice perhaps.
Juice.
A juiced, yes, as we all know, that word that we all know. So for me, the one that would have to go, I'd probably say the cookies, because if I'm snacking, I don't want something that's like, cookies always leave me wanting more. Where like the bag of Chex Mix, the bag of Trail Mix, and the white popcorn, like I've had enough when I finish the bag. But cookies, man, you give a mouse a cookie, he's gonna want some milk and some more cookies.
Yeah.
And if you give Dan Lucero a cookie, same difference.
I'm not gonna lie. I saw a thing of Oreos over there earlier. I might go grab one during the break. If they're still there, I might go grab one.
Man, that's real.
We do need to take a timeout. We've got some comments in the YouTube comment section about some NFL talk. We're gonna get to that coming up in the next hour. News and notes from around the NFL, including the big moves last night and today for the Kansas City Chiefs. Right now, though, after this commercial break, we will hear from Jalen Wilson and DeJuan Harris here in Des Moines. Coming up on 580 Sports Talk.
Gary Bedore, Casey Starr, Jalen, Coach Blakeney, of Howard said he worked with you at the Combine and really loves your game. Do you remember working with him, and what do you remember about that? And I have a follow-up.
Yeah, for sure. That was the one good thing about the Combine. I was able to work with a lot of different people and coaches, and well-respected man. I appreciate everything that we was able to encounter at the Combine, and it was great.
How anxious are you to play a team outside?
See if we're all good to go here. Kyle, are we all set on the player audio?
Coach Blake
okay. Is it playing?
Howard said he worked with you at the Combine.
Can you send it to us? Can you put it in a program too?
And what do you remember about that? And I have a follow-up.
Oh, you're good. No, I just wasn't sure if we were on or not.
That was the one good thing about the Combine. I was able to work with a lot of different people and coaches. And,
oh, yeah, that's true.
Well-respected man. I appreciate everything that we was able to encounter at the Combine. It was great.
How anxious are you to play a team outside the Big 12? I know you've been in the grind of the Big 12 forever, just playing somebody else.
Yeah, the Big 12 was the hardest conference in the country this year, was the best conference in the country. So really, I'm happy to get to play someone different, get to see something new. So we just gotta be ready to play.
You have a question on the right side? Okay, we go up to the front row here on the left side, on the aisle.
Hey guys, Scott Reese, KCTV5, and I'll have a follow-up as well. Jalen, I know you guys have talked about the pressure to repeat, but I'm just wondering, if you guys appreciate how difficult it is, not only to repeat, but to lose 70% of your production from last year and to do what you guys have done and be in that position again.
It's a blessing to be back here as a number one seed, and I don't think anyone really is looking at it as us repeat. I think it's just us going to win it again. As far as this is for something for us, and to do that, it's going to take us winning 2 games at a time each weekend, and understanding every game is going to be a battle, no matter who we're playing, and just appreciate the moment that we're in. It doesn't come too often that you're a number one seed, so it's great to be in this position again and have the opportunity right in front of us to go do it.
Similar question. How does the experience that you guys went through last year, how does that sort of raise the bar for your expectations and knowing what that feels like to cut down the nets?
Last year we was an older team, so we had a lot of vets, so it was much easier. So we was more together than we was this year because we was vets and stuff. But this year, Jay Will, he's one of the best players in the country. He's leading us, so we just following behind him. It's going to be his last year here, so we just want to try to do our best for him.
Going back right side, Eric Olson, Associated Press.
Thanks, Mike. I don't have to identify myself now. Jalen, wanted to ask you about Coach Self. I guess how's he looking here since he's come back to rejoin the team after his procedure?
Oh, he's looking great, feeling great. We were able to talk to him today at practice, and he's excited. We're all excited, and it's great to have him back on the court with us, for him able to coach us, and start off tomorrow with a bang.
Question on the left side.
Hi guys, David Lawrence, Jayhawk Radio. Juan, their point guard Elijah Hawkins, 47% shooter from the 3, all conference player. Just talk about that challenge of taking on such a good 3-point shooter.
I know he does a lot for his team. He gets in the lane, he shoots it. I think their whole team shoots a lot of threes. I think they got like 3 or 4 guys that shot over 100 threes. So I think tomorrow we got to guard the 3-point line and just be ready to come out and play with a lot of energy.
Other questions for our student athletes here. Front row.
Nick Springer, Rock Chalk Sports Talk. I just wonder, after winning the title last year, do you guys feel more or less pressure coming into the tournament this year? How do you think that run last year helps you coming into this year?
I don't feel any pressure at all. That's the beauty of this tournament, is that it's really just one game, a lot of one-game tournaments. This is win or go home. And I just embrace having fun. This is the best time of the year for basketball. Even when I was a kid watching, this is the best time of the year. Just to experience everything, see all the basketball, because I'm not only getting to play, but able to watch a lot of good basketball. So I don't feel any pressure at all. I think we're just here to do what we know how to do, play our basketball, and have fun.
Yeah, basically what Jay Will said, just coming in to play our best basketball, staying together, stay locked in, having coaches back, and then you got to keep winning. We got to win, and then hopefully we can make another great run.
Front row on the aisle.
Yeah. Hey, guys, I'm just wondering, with Coach Self still not quite ready, obviously, to do media here, and, certainly from our vantage point, the uncertainty, I'm just wondering, what's it been like for you guys the last couple of weeks? I know how important he is to you, how much, important he is to the program. What's it been like for you with sort of the uncertainty of Coach's role as we head into this tournament?
Oh, we know Coach's role. He'll be coaching. He's doing everything that he's been doing. He was down for a while for the Big 12 tournament, but he's back. He's energized and excited, and ready to get this going again. And, we're super excited to have him back. So we know we'll have him.
Time for one more question here on the left side.
Good.
And then we go take your question up front row, and that'll be it.
Guys, probably 2 weeks ago, we were on a 7-game run of wins, a couple losses to Texas, and now a lot of people are picking us to get upset early in the tournament. Does that provide an extra edge that there are some doubters out there, just from both of you?
No, doubters is always a part of this tournament. I remember last year going to the Final Four, they gave us the worst percentage, or at least to win it all, and we ended up winning. So, all those people who make percentages are people who are not on the court with us. We control what we can control, and and how hard we play and how together we are, and we could care less about what someone thinks that we're going to do. Upsets happen every single year, so I'm not saying it can't happen to anyone, but we're confident what we can do, and we don't really look to percentages and what people have us.
Yeah, we don't really think about no doubters. We see a lot of stuff, but we just play our game and stay true to what we are. Kansas. We get a lot of hate sometimes, so people gonna try to be on the downside of us. So, but we just gotta stay together and stay to who we are.
Final question in the front row.
Maddie Hartley, University Daily, Kansas. Jalen, knowing this is your last run in the tournament, are you just kind of taking it all in?
For sure. I've been having fun with it all year, and to be at this point, number one seed in a great position and the best time to play basketball is exciting. And I just want to embrace it all game by game and just soak it all in. So it's gonna be fun.
Thank you, guys. Best of luck.
Thank you.
That is Jalen Wilson, and that is DeJuan Harris speaking earlier today at KU's media availability at the NCAA tournament at the Wells Fargo Center in Des Moines. Real quick, do want to remind you that our tournament coverage is brought to you by Lewis Toyota on the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship, located back in the capital city at the intersection of I-470 and Fairlawn. With a large Toyota certified inventory, they are your hometown dealer. That's Lewis Toyota and the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship. Anything in particular stand out to you about what the guys said today?
Well, obviously, I think the first thing that people are interested to hear is that the players certainly fully expect that Bill Self will be on the sideline tomorrow afternoon when Kansas opens the NCAA tournament, that he's been a part of preparing to open the tournament, and that just because he didn't do media availability today is not necessarily an indication of his availability for tomorrow. So obviously that's wonderful news. We hope that Bill Self is doing well, continuing to recover well. But the other thing, and it's like we talked about at the top of the show, I feel like, again, this is a team that has found the chip on its shoulder. It's found the thing that they feel disrespected by, and it's not getting that number one seed in the Midwest, or it's being the number one seed that is not projected to win its bracket where the others might be.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is going to fuel this Kansas team for as long as their NCAA tournament run lasts. That's going to be that disrespect, that edge that fires them up and gets them ready to play.
The Self situation to me is so interesting because, most importantly is that he's doing okay and that he is healthy and able to return at some point and can just, feel normal. That's obviously the most important thing with the entire situation. But it's a funny situation that you'd think KU doesn't need Bill Self to beat Howard. They should be fine. And if that is the case, you got to have him back for Arkansas or Illinois, because either one of those two teams is going to probably be able to do more against you just in terms of their natural talent than a Howard would. But by the same token, you don't want to take any risks, right? And I'm not saying that Norm Roberts can't handle it for one more game. He's 6-1 in 7 games at the helm this year, including a win over Duke, including 2 wins in the Big 12 tournament. It's not like it's just been a bunch of scrubs that he's coached against, but I kind of feel like at the same time, you want him out there as soon as possible. And maybe it doesn't work out like that. And hey, he's good to go at some point, but it might not be till Saturday as opposed to Thursday. I don't know. It's so up in the air. It's truly, as Robert said, day to day at this point. But it's just so unique. I mean, when is the last time we saw a situation where a coach was truly day to day going into a tournament game? I cannot remember any such moment.
Yeah, that's not a thing you say a lot about a coach day to day, right?
No.
So interesting stuff from the players as always, and a team that feels ready to play. You know, it was fascinating to watch the open practice sessions today, and like Texas was running full court drills and doing like a lot of like stuff that you would normally see at a practice. For KU, it was very much just a shoot around. Like they took care of what they needed to take care of in their closed practice this morning, and they went out and just kind of shot around a little bit. They left the court with 11 minutes practice time still available to them. Like they feel like a team that they're in a good headspace and they're ready to go and play. They don't they weren't worried about necessarily putting on a show for the fans in Des Moines so much as they were, let's make sure we're loose, let's get some shots up, let's have a little fun, and let's be ready to play tomorrow. Let's be ready to defend our championship.
Man, they were done with their practice, like 10 minutes still to go.
Oh, yeah, there
were
12 minutes on the clock, and they were outie 5,000. They were done.
They had huddled up. We were just sitting at the table. We were taking pictures, watching, and they all huddle up at center court, and we were wondering, are they going to like run a couple drills here? Are they going to do a little team session, or are they just going to start doing their half-court heaves and walk off the court? Now that half-court heaves. Ernest Uday got one to go.
Ernie Uday made one. That's got to be a good omen, right?
This is a discussion for after the tournament and, you know, when boot camp rolls around in next season, and it really has nothing to do with making a half-court shot. Dude, he's going to be so good.
I'm a big fan.
He is going to be so freaking good. I'm not saying he's going to be, you know, Doak even or one of the other great bigs in KU history, but I think he might be that good one day. I really have that belief.
I like him a lot.
We've got to take a break here on 580 Sports Talk for our national and local news. We'll come back in the 4 o'clock hour. Plenty of NFL, plus Tim Fitzgerald will join us. It's all coming up right here on 580 WIBW. now, 4 o'clock hour of 580 Sports Talk coming your way. Brendan Brzezinski and Dan Lucero here with you from Wells Fargo Arena in beautiful, scenic Des Moines, Iowa.
Just outside of West Des Moines.
Yes. Or as West Des Moines.
Just east of West Des Moines.
Just east of West Des Moines. Yeah, that's the best way to describe it geographically. Pretty easy drive in. It's not hard to get to from our neck of the woods.
Yeah, we made it a little under 4 hours on one tank of gas, which was nice. Nice and easy drive. Just a quick shot up. You don't. We avoided Kansas City rush hour traffic. Shot up 635 and made it a pretty easy route on the way up. So yeah, pleasant little morning drive. We arrived on a kind of a gray morning here in Des Moines. I know y'all care so much about the weather. Just know it is going to be chilly here. I mean, we're getting to the 50s next couple of days. Saturday's going to be 20 degrees.
Yeah, it's going to get gross.
Don't appreciate that. I can tell you that right now.
No, I mean, you might be coming up to see the games. Again, it's not all that far. There's going to be quite a KU contingent during practice today. I mean, it was a full lower level of people watching KU doing essentially like personal shooting drills. I mean, it was not all that thrilling. So, no, I would imagine there's going to be a pretty darn good KU contingent, better than anyone else here, I would think. I think Illinois is probably going to have a pretty good crowd. It's really not that far.
Yeah, Illinois, I think will draw pretty well. Arkansas fans, of course, are very rabid. I think that'll be a good I think Arkansas, Illinois will probably have the best atmosphere of tomorrow's games. That will, of course, be the one being played while we are here underneath the arena and doing the show. So you'll maybe hear the crowd in the background, but I think that'll be the best atmosphere of the 4-day one games. I don't think any of the mid majors, the small schools that are here are gonna travel great. So I'll tell you this: the colors I saw the most in the crowd today at the live practice session, like usually, like we go cover KU in Tulsa, or if we go cover in Wichita, Omaha, Kansas City, St. Louis, the color we see the most often is blue. We see that Jayhawk blue. Today, the color I saw personally most often in the crowd today was either Hawkeye yellow or Iowa State Cardinal.
A lot of local folks.
A lot of locals.
You wanted to come and watch rivals, I guess. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, Illinois and Iowa, that's a rivalry. You've got KU Iowa State, which is obviously at least something of a conference rivalry. So pretty good crowd. I'm excited for the next couple of days.
I was in Birmingham. Iowa State, Iowa State ended up in Denver.
Is that where they ended up?
Yeah. Huh. Brooklyn's going to be hopping outside of Ball Arena. Let me tell you what.
Yeah, no doubt about that. We've got some more college basketball to get to later on in the show. We'll preview K-State's opening round matchup. They will be in action against the Bobcats of Montana State coming up on Friday. That's a late tip on Friday. They have one of the latest, I believe it's the fourth or fifth latest game of the day, 8:40 Central Time tip-off. Tim Fitzgerald is going to stop by later. We'll talk a little K-State basketball against Montana State and their possible second-round draw against either Providence or Kentucky as well. That's coming up at the bottom of this hour. We've also got today's What Is Wrong With You and plenty of NFL news to get to here in just a moment. We're also taking your texts throughout the day on the text line, 785-272-9429. And, of course, you can chime in the comment section on YouTube as well. Our channel is Sports on 580 WIBW. You'll see myself, you'll see Dan, and you'll see Kyle as well. Kyle Manthe manning the board back at the 580 studios on Huntoon Hill today, stepping in and helping us out while we are out on the road. This is also a great opportunity to remind you that all of our coverage of the NCAA tournament is brought to you on the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship. Buy local, buy Lewis, your local hometown Toyota dealer. This is the Lewis Toyota Road to a Championship. And additionally, head to our website. Again, I'll keep reminding you until every single person that we know is listening to this program is signed up for it. 580WIBW.com, our Bracket Mayhem, Bracket Challenge, Basketball Mayhem, Bracket Challenge. There's a little green square on the left-hand side of the website. Just go there, 580WIBW.com, click on that, and then you'll be able to find the you'll be able to find the Bracket Challenge. The hour-by-hour breakdown is on the podcast tab, but you'll be able to find our Bracket Challenge. It's free to enter, free to play. You can battle against all your favorite folks from the Sports on 580 team, and a perfect bracket could net you as well $1 million. That's at our website, 580WIBW.com, and our Basketball Mayhem Challenge. Go be a part of it. It's going to be fun. The more people are in it, the more fun and the more bragging rights you can get. So go join and be a part of that now. We're all part of it. Myself, Dan, Fulton. I think Jake is signed up already.
You think he got in?
Yeah, I think he did. If not, I'm going to badger him about it, so he better get in there. Let's get to some NFL news and notes for today, and we're going to ignore what was going on with my favorite team today. That'll come up in headlines a little bit later on.
Yeah, it will.
Some big news for the Kansas City Chiefs, though. Last night, they made a signing, which a good rotational piece on the defensive line. They signed Charles Omenihu. We'll get to him a little bit more in a bit. He's going to factor into the pass rush rotation along with George Karlaftis and along with Mike Dana. That's the group they have right now. But then right before we went on the air, it was in the 2 o'clock hour.
Yeah, about an hour. Yeah, right at the top of the 2 o'clock hour.
We found out that JuJu Smith-Schuster not returning to the Kansas City Chiefs. He is instead, for about $11 million a year, going to the New England Patriots. And the thing that this says to me is either what you brought up earlier, that there's something wrong with that knee and maybe the Chiefs have some long-term concerns, or they just don't believe him to be an $11 million a year player, which is fine, albeit surprising, because if you're saying that is the market, and the market is if you are a starting, if not great wide receiver, you're going to get $11 million a year. It's what Jacoby Myers got. It's what Allen Lazard got. I would have paid that for JuJu Smith-Schuster. I would have thought. And again, this leads me back to a situation like we were in at offensive tackle, at left tackle specifically, where, okay, if you're going to let him go, I would imagine Brett Veach has a plan. What is that plan going to look like? I thought it would be easier to just keep JuJu and run it back with him, but apparently the front office feels differently.
Yeah, Mike Giardi of the NFL Network tweeted pretty much directly, the Chiefs weren't willing to go to the financial length the Patriots were on Smith-Schuster, which is fascinating because the Patriots weren't willing to match what the Raiders gave Jacoby Myers. So obviously they evaluated him much differently than they evaluate JuJu Smith-Schuster. But there it is, right from Mike Giardi. There's no mystery here. The Patriots are giving JuJu Smith-Schuster 3 years, $33 million. That's $11 million average annual value, which is, again, the exact same as Jacoby Myers and the exact same as Allen Lazard. $22.5 million of that is guaranteed. And so you're left to conclude that the Chiefs don't think he's worth $11 million a year. They don't think he's worth that kind of guaranteed money. Maybe they don't feel comfortable giving him that many years. They were comfortable doing 1 year, $3.8 million with a bunch of incentives last year. And I think with the incentives, it bumped him up $4 million. I think he made about $4, close to $5 in incentives, something in that neighborhood. So he ended up being about an $8 million player for the Chiefs last year, but they don't view him moving forward as an $11 million a year or a 3-year player for them. That does surprise me because I think he's worth that. I think he's a better player than Jacoby Myers. I think he's a better player than Allen Lazard. I think he was a better fit in the Chiefs offense than either of those guys would have been.
Agreed.
And I would think that the Chiefs should have brought JuJu back. I'm surprised that they didn't. I'm a little disappointed that they didn't. But I also think that you're right in saying that there's a benefit of the doubt that Brett Veach has earned with regards to his plan for this roster. And I would think that there is probably an acquisition of a veteran wide receiver coming in some form or fashion moving forward to make sure that you aren't so dependent on either young players or a guy in Kadarius Toney who's both young and injury prone. I forget who it was. I think it was James Palmer who reported that the Chiefs view Kadarius Toney as their wide receiver one moving forward. I think that's a dangerous game for the Chiefs to play, given Toney's injuries. It's not like he's had like a broken thumb, you know, or a torn rotator cuff or whatever. He's dealing with hamstring injuries, the kind of injuries that can rob a fast guy, a shifty guy of some of that speed and shiftiness. So I do not love the idea of the Chiefs going into a season with Kadarius Toney as your wide receiver one on the depth chart. And I don't think the Chiefs ultimately will. I'd be very surprised if they did, because that would, to me, be a lack of foresight that I don't think the Chiefs have really have displayed in recent years. They've usually been a lot more, shown a lot more foresight than that.
And I think, too, not only is it the fact that he has had the injuries, but we've never just really seen Kadarius Toney in that role at all. I mean, we just haven't seen him produce at that kind of level or with that kind of workload. And I get you could say, well, that's because he's been injured. He hasn't been on the field enough. But even when he's been on the field, both in college and at the NFL level, you don't think of him as, you know, a number one X wide receiver. That's not really his game. We know about the issues he had with the Giants. We know he was good in small sample sizes with the Chiefs. Go back to his career at Florida. I mean, his best year was his senior season. He had 70 catches, 984 yards, ran the ball 19 times as well that year, had 11 total touchdowns. Like, that's good, but that's not what you would say, oh, yeah, this is a must-have number one type of receiver. I mean, if you remember back to that draft, it would have been the 2021 draft. It was not exactly like overwhelming, oh, my God, this guy has to be a top 20 pick. It was something of a surprise he went as early as he did. In fact, I believe I was among a group that said, the hell are the Giants doing? They traded out of where they could have gotten Justin Fields, and they went for Kadarius Toney instead. I don't understand this move.
I do want to be fair, though, because you look at Kadarius Toney, he doesn't look like a wide receiver number one. You know who else doesn't physically look like a wide receiver number one? Tyreek Hill.
That's true.
And that worked out pretty well. Now, Tyreek Hill has a level of speed that not even Kadarius Toney can match, although Toney can make it closer than a lot of guys in the league can. But the Chiefs have shown that they are willing to think outside the box when it comes to what wide receiver number one looks like. And the other part of it is, in truth, that wide receiver number one for the Chiefs, as long as he's on the roster, is Travis Kelce.
Yep.
And that you're less concerned about having that guy at wide receiver who's the number one target when you've got maybe the greatest tight end of all time is your number one target in the passing game. So those are the two areas where I'm willing to give a little grace to the Chiefs here if they really do believe Kadarius Toney is wide receiver number one. But given his injury history, given the fact he's only been with the team for a little more than half a season moving into this offseason, I really think that they would be well served to make another addition, whether that's via trade or the free agent market.
And I assume they will have to do something in the free agent market. Among guys who can be contributors right away, I mean, there's just not much depth out there. A name that you and I have both brought up, and really brought up for a couple of years now because he was a free agent last year. He only spent 1 year in Detroit. I like DJ Chark a lot. Like, I think that's an interesting piece, and he's probably not a quote-unquote number one, but he's a nice player, and if he's a complimentary piece, I think that's a good role. That's essentially what he was in Detroit with an offense that was pretty darn good last year, so I wouldn't hate that piece. Here's the other one that's going to come up, whether it should or not, and our guy Jordan Foote from Sports Illustrated mentioned this name on Twitter a little bit earlier on today. OBJ's out there.
I think Odell Beckham Jr. is looking for a payday more than he's looking for a good spot, right? Like, he got his ring. So he's not ring chasing anymore. He's not looking for that team glory. He's looking for the payday. He's looking for the bag. And if the Chiefs aren't going to give JuJu Smith-Schuster what he's worth, what the market has dictated that he is worth, I can't imagine that they're going to be willing to pony up for what Odell Beckham Jr. believes he's worth. Somebody's going to. I just don't think it's going to be the Chiefs.
Yeah, and the thing is, too, and I don't even mean this as a negative against OBJ, but I think he'd like to go somewhere where he can kind of be the face of the team, where he can say, this is my group, even if it's not just him. Like in LA, Sean McVay was willing to do that. Sean McVay was willing to say, yeah, you're a superstar, and treat him like a superstar.
Yeah.
And not that he hasn't at some point in his career had that kind of talent, but you're not even the best. You're not even the biggest name among receiving options in Kansas City. You are, in terms of like clout in that locker room, at best fourth, because it's Patrick Mahomes, it's Travis Kelce, and really it's Chris Jones.
Yeah.
Too. Chris Jones's name carries a lot of weight in that locker room. So I don't. Yeah, I'm not saying they should do it. I'm not even saying it's necessarily likely or possible. But I mean, if you're just talking in terms of talent, he's probably among the best out there. It's just such a weak class, and that. Maybe there's a trade in the works. Maybe you move for someone here in the next month before the draft starts. You've got a bunch of late round picks.
Maybe the DeAndre Hopkins thing is a little bit more realistic than we thought a week or so ago.
Also
Again,
possible.
that would go counter to what the Chiefs have done to build at the wide receiver position. They've never gone and gotten like the old guy at wide receiver. And it is fair to point out that DeAndre Hopkins' production is beginning to slip over the last couple of seasons. Also, he missed 6 games last year with the steroid suspension. But the Cardinals showed last year that if you've got even a bummy quarterback, which they did after Kyler Murray went down, and I can hear people making the joke, well, they also had a bummy quarterback when Kyler Murray was healthy. Like, okay, I'm going to let you get your joke off. But they proved that you can build a passing attack around him as a top option still, as a guy who can get open underneath, who can get open one-on-one. And I think he's still got that in him. I think that would be the one that I think would raise the ceiling for the Chiefs passing attack in a way that there's nobody really on the free agent market that's going to do that.
That's true. No, I'm with you 100% on that. It would be an interesting shift for the Chiefs, too, because they haven't relied on go get it, go up and get it kind of guys, which is more of DeAndre Hopkins' game as opposed to you're just going to be open. So it would be interesting. It would be fascinating to me if they were actually able to pull that off. I do also want to get to the move the Chiefs made, adding a player last night. They signed Charles Omenihu, 2 years, $20 million total value of the contract. He was a rotational guy in San Francisco. He'd be a rotational guy in Kansas City as well. I guess he could start.
I don't think they brought him in to be a rotational guy. I think Charles Omenihu is here to replace Frank Clark. I think he's going to.
He starts over Dana though.
I do. I think he's going to start on one end, and George Karlaftis is going to start on the other. Now, the thing that is fascinating with Omenihu is he might be the most versatile pass rusher the Chiefs have on their roster, where he can line up outside, he can line up inside, he can line up over a center, he can line up over a guard, he can line up 1 tech, 3 tech, 5 tech, 9 tech on the outside. He can do all of those things and get to the quarterback, not just stand there.
Yeah.
He can get to the quarterback from all of those spots. He's a young player, only 26 years old, career highs in all of the meaningful stat categories for a pass rusher last year. So a guy that on his face is only getting better. The negative on Charles Omenihu's resume, and we should bring it up right off the bat, is that he is still under investigation. He was arrested and
on suspicion
on yes,
TV. Yeah.
suspicion of misdemeanor domestic violence was the charge. And this happened during the NFL playoffs last year. There was an incident with Omenihu and a woman who was identified as his girlfriend, in which he was accused of pushing her to the ground. The 49ers did not see fit to suspend Omenihu. To this point, charges have not been filed against Omenihu, but the case is still open and under investigation. So that is the kind of thing that could cost Omenihu games under the personal conduct policy, even if there are no charges, even if there is no criminal investigation or trial or anything like that. It still is the kind of thing that could cost Omenihu some games, and the Chiefs are going to have to be prepared for that possibility. Willie Gay lost 4 games last year because of the accusations there were more severe, but it was still a domestic violence situation. So that is something the Chiefs are going to have to be aware of, and it's not something that you love to see connected to one of your players. That being said, that didn't stop the Chiefs from acquiring Frank Clark. It obviously didn't stop the Chiefs from drafting Tyreek Hill. So they have a belief in their player, and they have a belief in whatever due diligence it is that they do, if any, before they bring a player into their locker room, into their clubhouse, into their environment. And so that will bear watching, and certainly could affect Omenihu's availability at some point this next season. But when he is on the field, he gets after the quarterback. And I think you can make the case that if the Chiefs started this season, if they started next season tomorrow, their line, they'd go Omenihu and Karlaftis on the outside, Jones and probably Wharton on the inside, because Derek Notty's a free agent. Colin Saunders signed with the Saints. Shout out to him. Super Bowl champion. Wish Colin Saunders all the best of luck. Seems like a really likable guy, and I think the Saints are going to love having him around. But that starting group of 4, to me, that's better than the group of 4 they started last year with.
Yeah, okay. That's fair enough.
Because I think Omenihu right now is a better player than Frank Clark.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. That's a great question.
Now, do I like I said, I think there were things that Clark did well that were kind of undervalued, but I think
game for sure.
But I think as a full time, as a starting defensive end, rather than being the rotational player that he was with the 49ers, I think Omenihu can be an 8 to 10 sack guy.
Even though he's never gotten there.
Never gotten there, because I think more ample playing opportunities.
For
B,
sure.
he gets to work with Joe Cullen,
which always helps.
And
so you also get to play on a line that has Chris Jones on
yes, it. I think there's potential for Omenihu to be even more productive as a Chief these next 2 years. I really like that piece of business for them as far as a football standpoint goes.
I think I'd still be in the market to add someone. Well, I think they're going to draft an edge player no matter what. They've got so many picks. They're going to take an edge rusher at some point. I would not be opposed to still continuing to look in free agency if you could find someone on the cheap. And this might be June when you find this, similar to when you originally wanted to get Melvin Ingram a couple seasons ago, or when you got Carlos Dunlap this past year. I would not be opposed to signing or at least looking into a guy like that still at this point to add just a little more depth and not a guy that you're expecting to start. I mean,
I think you have to go 4 deep at the end, right? Like,
for sure.
I think you have to be. I really you like the starting point with Karlaftis year 2, with Omenahu, a full-time role, maybe ready to blossom, and with Mike Dana, who really came on strong at the end of last year in that rotational role. Yeah, you had one more guy, whoever it is, if it's a veteran, if it's a Carlos Dunlap type of player, if it's literally Carlos Dunlap. But yeah, you add one more piece to that, and then I think you've got a really, really strong rotation at defensive end.
And I think you, again, can wait until the draft plays out. You get past the deadline for compensatory pick formulation, and you can wait to see, all right, what veterans are available come summertime, within the month before training camp. Because if you end up drafting someone at, throw a random name out there, BJ Ojulari from LSU, he ends up being the guy that you really like at the end of the first round. You get him. Okay, well, maybe you don't need to go sign anybody else. Maybe you say, all right, we think that guy, if he's 4th on the depth chart year 1, Dana is 3rd, you've got Omenahu 2 and Karlaftis 1. If that's your 1 through 4 pass rusher option on the outside, okay, you're probably all right with that. But if you end up, man, we took a guy in the 5th round because the guys we liked weren't available at the end of the 1st or in the 2nd or whatever, I would look for a veteran, because I do think you need 4 guys who can contribute right away, keep the legs fresh, generate a lot of pressure. That would be my approach in that situation.
Because if we learn anything from what the Eagles did for last season and the 70 sacks they accumulated, and the 8 more in the playoffs and none in the Super Bowl, but still 78 sacks in 20 games, pretty unbelievable. If you learn anything from that, it's that the more the merrier up front. The more guys you got, the fresher you can keep those legs, and the better chance you're going to have to, in the second half, 3rd and 4th quarter, if you're ahead, because the Chiefs play from ahead a lot because they're really good on offense, you got a chance to pin your ears back and rack up some sacks.
We've got some more NFL we're going to talk about later on in the show in our 580 Sports Talk headlines segment. Right now, though, we're going to get to a quick break. We've got What Is Wrong With You coming up, and we'll talk to Tim Fitzgerald later on this hour right here on 580 Sports Talk. on the road edition of What is Wrong with You, winner for today on 580 Sports Talk with Brendan and Dan. Thank you so much for stopping by and being a part of the show today. We're going to get to Tim Fitzgerald coming up here in just a few moments. But first, a couple quick stories going head to head. We'll see if anyone can take down our current winner for the week. The felonious father, the dad in Scotland who tried to rob his son.
His own son at knife point at an ATM. Even after his son was like, yo, dude, what are you doing? He said, I don't care. Give me that 10 pounds.
Give me a couple shillings.
Somebody in our YouTube comments did the exchange rate on that yesterday. It's like $12.16.
Well, he said he was desperate. He wasn't lying.
Clearly.
Man,
26 months in prison for trying to stick up your own kid.
And then he's got to get out and see his kid. I might have some thoughts if I was his son at that point. I'm going to go first today, Dan, and we're going down to Jacksonville, Florida. This story is dark. I'm just going to prepare you for it. It is dark. We go to Jacksonville where family and friends came to pay their respects to their good pal, Kevin Witherspoon. However, they were never able to say that final goodbye. Witherspoon was supposed to be cremated after his visitation and funeral services.
Oh, no.
But the funeral home handling everything accidentally cremated him before the visitation.
No.
According to News4Jax, our good friends down in Jacksonville, WJXT TV, Witherspoon died suddenly last week. Obviously very sad for him. And his brother, Frank Chapman, tells the station that he handled the arrangements with the Corey Curlin Funeral Homes and Crematory. Quote, they took care of my mom really good, so I was expecting them to do the same thing with my brother. I went down there yesterday to check on the clothes for him, and they didn't say nothing. They said everything was fine, but later on around 4 p.m., they called me and told me they accidentally cremated him.
Oh, gosh.
According to the report, Witherspoon's family paid more than $2,000 for an hour-long visitation. The funeral home is not commenting on the issue. Here's your comment. Sorry.
Oops. Our bad. It's all the comment you can do, right? Oh, man. Feel awful for his family. That's just terrible. Oh, geez.
Like, I feel bad laughing. It's very funny in a non-human way.
Yes, like what is wrong with you is obviously not anybody dying, but it's the funeral home being like, hey, like, this is like the measure twice, cut once. So you don't mess up. Yeah, like double check, triple check those instructions.
Yeah, that's
like, did they think the family was coming to visit the urn? Like, come on, that's bad.
Is it time for this one? Oh, yeah, sure, why not?
For mine, we are going to St. Petersburg, Florida, where a 39-year-old woman is facing a felony battery charge for throwing an avocado at her 68-year-old boyfriend and hitting him in the eye. Police say that Carlene Beiswanger and the victim have been living together in an apartment for about a year and, quote, have been engaging in consensual sexual intercourse. I don't know why we need that detail. I really don't know why we need that detail.
Seems
but you know what?
Unnecessary.
Good for them. Anyhow, during a confrontation Sunday evening, police allege Beiswanger threw an avocado at the victim's face, causing injury to his right eye, and also allegedly threw a hanging rod that struck the man in his arm.
Oh, my God.
After being read her rights, Beiswanger denied directly striking the victim. She was arrested for battering a victim age 65 or older, which is a felony, and was released from the county jail without bond late Sunday night. Her rap sheet includes multiple convictions for illegal possession of Xanax, as well as convictions for theft, DUI, obstructing police, probation violation, and driving without a license.
Maybe could have used some Xan right there.
Career criminal Carlene Beiswanger dating this 68-year-old man and threw an avocado at him.
What?
Like,
there's just a lot of whys.
Yeah, the obvious first question: why an avocado? Because it was there.
Because it was there. Yeah.
Like it was there to be thrown.
Man, a hanging rod. That's violent. That's like a javelin.
That's a heck of a toss, though. I mean, an avocado kind of oblong, so it's not like a ball, right? So I don't know if it's spinning. Like, how would you throw an avocado like a baseball, or do you?
Yeah, I think I would
throw it like a football.
I think I would try to throw it sideways, so it like long way horizontally.
Do you think it hit like the fat part, or maybe like the thinner part at the top?
I feel like I'd rather have it be the fatter part.
Yeah, me
it
too.
Spreads
like
out a little bit.
Yeah,
more.
The thin part might really like jab you.
At you. Yeah. I don't really want to get hit with one anyway.
No.
Especially with the core in it.
Yeah.
Ooh, no, thank you.
It would be painful. Yeah.
Who wins today?
Or if it's not within that 15-minute window when avocados are ready to eat, it could be mushy.
Oh, just splatter.
Nah, don't hit me with a ripe avocado. Hit me with a overripe avocado.
All right. Who gets the nod for today?
Gosh, yeah, the winning story is obviously the funeral home that cremated the guy in accident.
Yeah, man, oh my God. That's just so awful.
I
don't want to keep talking about that.
No,
It's a winner
I don't.
for today. I do not want to keep talking about that story.
No, the father robbing son is a much funnier story.
It is an extremely funny story.
We're going to keep advancing the Scottish dad who robbed his son.
That is still our winner this week in What Is Wrong With You. Let's take a quick break. We'll come back, talk to Tim Fitzgerald of GoPowerCat.com for the Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up right here on 580 Sports Talk.
It's a big Kansas State victory.
We've been focusing plenty on the team from Lawrence throughout the day here on 580 Sports Talk, but it's time to head to the opposite side of the capital city, almost equidistant, and we're starting to talk a little Kansas State Wildcats NCAA tournament action. They will take on Montana State coming up on Friday night, and to preview that game, we welcome in our good friend Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com, part of the 24/7 Sports Network. You can find him as well on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Fitz, what's going on, man? How excited are you for the start of the NCAA tournament this week?
Oh, let's get it going. I'm not traveling with the team this year. I got my young guys out there on the road, and you know this. The worst place to watch the tournament is while covering the tournament. So I'm going to sit back and enjoy tomorrow from wire to wire.
All right. Well, how nervous are you about sending the young guys out there? You know, a little debauchery down in Greensboro, North Carolina. I've never been, but I imagine it's Carolina.
Yeah, that's my understanding, and that's why I feared it. I didn't want to go and put myself in peril of a good time. So I thought, why don't you send some guys that probably need a good time? They work for me, so it can't be great life for them. So let's give them a little trip to Greensboro as a treat.
Well, Fitz, let's look ahead to the start of this tournament run for Kansas State. They are a 3 seed in the East Regional. They'll take on 14th seeded Montana State coming up in the opening round. Again, that's an 8:40 Central Time tip-off coming up on Friday night. But before we look ahead, I do want to just go back really quickly to the Big 12 tournament and K-State get knocked out in the first round. I was a little surprised they fell to TCU, and Horned Frogs ran away with it a little bit late, but it was a pretty competitive game throughout. How are the vibes around this team going into this game? Does it feel like, oh my God, something is actually wrong because they didn't go very far in the Big 12 tournament? Or is it, and that didn't really mean a whole lot anyway, let's just get to the big dance?
Well, I think that's the post-game take is, let's move on to win 6 more games, you're national champions. But let's not forget going into the game in Kansas City, they said how focused they were. They wanted to win the title, and then you see them get into a game, not play particularly well, and TCU gets in a groove, and it really looked like a mismatch. So I get why a lot of pundits around the country are saying K-State's going to make a quick exit. They did it in Kansas City. Surely losing to TCU is a sign of that. But, guys, we both know that TCU is a really good team when they kind of put it all together, and they could do some damage in the NCAA tournament. So I think this team's eager to see someone not from the Big 12, and that at least will take place for a few rounds here if they can keep winning.
Tim Fitzgerald at GoPowerCat.com is our guest. This is the weekly Azure Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. We do it every week at this time. Tim Fitzgerald, publisher of GoPowerCat.com, joining us here to talk all things K-State. Fitz, it seemed like a pretty simple straight-line equation for Kansas for the better part of this season. The team with the edge usually wins the K-State games, and Kansas State has been very good about being the team with a chip on its shoulder for the better part of this season. But when they are not the desperate team, it is pretty obvious, whether it's the home loss, the only one on their schedule to Texas, whether it's the regular season finale loss at a West Virginia team that really needed a win, or I think even in that first round game at the Big 12 tournament, the team that didn't have the edge, the team that didn't have that chip on its shoulder was Kansas State in those spots. I have a feeling, though, that this team, especially the way Jerome Tang reacted to that loss to TCU, I don't think they're going to be the team without a chip on its shoulder moving forward. Do you think that that first round loss may have served to put that back on their shoulder a bit?
Honestly, Dan, I don't know. I'm not sure where the psyche of this team is. And maybe just the fact that it's one more loss and you're done for the season will motivate them. It should motivate every team. But maybe that is what ignites that fire that you mentioned, us against the world. And literally it's you against one more loss. And I think they'll be fine against Montana State. This is a good team. Don't get me wrong. They've imported like tea, a really good team from Britain. But it's going to be an interesting matchup. There's no doubt about it. They've got some dudes. They really do. And I think they pair up well for K-State. I'm not as confident as how they pair up against Kentucky in the fact that both teams would be a bad matchup for the other team. So who's going to take control of the game? But first, you got to get through the Bobcats to play the Wildcats, if you're the Wildcats. And don't tell me that's not confusing, but that's the situation in which they find themselves.
How valuable is the tournament experience for these players and this coaching staff? Jerome Tang, obviously first-year head coach, but has been on the coaching staff of a team that has won a national championship. Keontae Johnson's played in the NCAA tournament. Desi Sills has played in the NCAA tournament. Bebe Igiola didn't play, but he was on a team that went to the NCAA tournament. How valuable do you think that is for this group to be able to go into this tournament with some of that experience?
I think it helps. I think the most productive of that would be Jerome Tang himself, and being the associate head coach for a team just a few years ago that won a national title. There's a process that goes into getting your team ready, in these little 4-game or 14 tournaments. That's all this is. It's 3 14 tournaments. That you're winning the first tournament to move on to the second tournament. And the second tournament gets really hard. If you win that tournament, you move on to the grand final 4-team tournament. And that one's almost impossible to win. And yet he's been part of the navigation process that got Baylor to the title game and a victory. So he's seen maybe some of the finesse and the mental massaging you have to take part of and behind the scenes with your team and what all needs to go right and how to construct a team that can win a national title. He's literally been part of that. And I think there is kind of a secret sauce to it that once you figure it out, that you're going to be part of that equation. And I think he knows he's got some pieces that can win a national title. He's certainly got 2 really great players. Now, if he can get some consistency from Desi Sills and a post presence, guys, they're going to do some damage in this tournament. And I think he knows that darn well.
Tim Fitzgerald to GoPowerCat.com is our guest on the Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. Fitz, we know what it looks like when it goes wrong for K-State. Usually it's the turnover bug bites in a major way. That's what happened against TCU. That's what happened against West Virginia. They turned the ball over 20 times in both of those games, and they lost both of those games. When the turnover bug is biting, it's really hard for this Kansas State team to win. It'd be hard for any team to win, but that seems to be the commonality in the games that Kansas State loses. What are the things you're going to be looking for as Kansas State opens tournament play on Friday night to feel really good about where Kansas State is and the way it's playing? What do you believe are the commonalities that this team has to put on display in round 1 to be a sign that they are ready to make a tournament run?
It's not – I've been saying turnovers are so crucial, and that's easy to say. I mean, when they get above 12, their percentages of winning seems to drop quite a bit. If they're 12 or fewer, they win most of those games. And that's easy to say, but really there's a bigger picture here for me. It's valuing possessions. And if you see them, actually locked in on possession by possession, this is what we want to accomplish, then I think they're going to be okay. They squander so many possessions with either turnovers or bad shots that might as well be turnovers. They are their own worst enemy, period. There's no way around it. If they can correct their own problems and worry about themselves and fix those issues, then they're going to be in a much better position to win. And it's not just as simple as doing those things. You got to hit the shots too. But for me, watching them play throughout this season, they get in a rhythm shooting the ball when they do certain things, which is usually pass the ball inside out, which is always a big thing for 3-point shooters, and also break down the defense and attack the rim with their alley-oop game. And if they get those things going together, we see them blow out or dominate really good teams. And if they can get back to doing those things on a consistent basis, just 6 more times, they might find themselves in a position nobody ever imagined. And let's be honest, they're already in a position a lot of us didn't imagine, being in the NCAA tournament as a 3 seed when this all began.
We're chatting with Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. It's our Azura Credit Union Wildcat wrap-up here on 580 Sports Talk. You can go find Fitz on Twitter at LifeFitz, and, of course, go check out his great work and the rest of his staff's great work over at GoPowerCat.com. It's part of the 24/7 Sports Network. Fitz, as we look ahead to this opening round matchup on Friday night between K-State and Montana State, what do you know about this Bobcats team? What do they do that either has you maybe a little bit worried for this matchup, or alternately, what do they do that makes you think, oh, yeah, K-State's got this in the bag?
Well, it's not like we've done a ton of research on the Montana State Bobcats, other than the fact that they've done a great job of, going to Europe and bringing in some players. Raekwon Battle, who certainly fills it up at, almost 18 points a game. He's a kid out of Washington State. So they've got some dudes. There's no reason to, if you're Montana State, you think you're winning this game. I mean, they come in at 25-9. They know how to win games. They play second in the Big Sky, but won the tournament. They feel good about things. And they're a nice balanced team. They do a lot of good things. But I also think, if K-State can just get after them, the ability of the two All-Americans in Keontae Johnson and Marquise Noel is hard to match up with, even for a Big 12 team. So I think if those guys are playing at the level they can, Keontae's big and physical like he can be while hitting outside shots, it's just going to be a real matchup issue for the Bobcats.
Fitz, are you someone who fills out a bracket?
I have. It's never accurate. It's kind of like my gambling. In theory, it was good, but it didn't work out.
Wow, that's painfully relatable. I'm almost mad that you said that, how relatable that is. So with that in mind, how far do you have K-State going?
I have them getting to the Sweet 16, which I think would be, a huge accomplishment for this team, and running into Marquette that's had a really nice season, is kind of constructed a little bit like Baylor. Which seems like a good matchup for K-State, but I don't think it actually is. They've just beaten them twice. So I'm intrigued by that matchup. If they can get there at 2 against the 3 in New York City, how much does the New York factor come in for the 4 guys that are going to be going home? Is it distraction or a huge motivator to be on that stage? If you're a kid growing up in New York City, playing at Rucker Park, which a lot of these guys have, playing inside Madison Square Garden is the thing. And now they get their chance. They just got to get there. But I'm afraid that setting might be a little bit much for them. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe that's exactly what motivates them to get over the hump. Meanwhile, on the upper half of that Eastern bracket, I think we're going to see total chaos. I think that's going to be part of the bracket in this greater tournament that gets blown up after the first sight. And I don't think Purdue's getting out of their first sight. I just think they're going to run into Memphis or Florida Atlantic and not get out of there. So keep an eye on that.
That's a smart man. I believe both Dan and I have Purdue out in that first weekend. Elsewhere in the bracket, do you have a favorite upset, a game you're saying, oh, yeah, I'm feeling this 12-5 or 13-4?
Or Roberts over Duke. If I miss on that, every bet and every bracket I have is in the trash. That's how confident I am. And I don't know why. I know Duke has been hot, but I just think Oral Roberts is put together pretty well, and it's going to give them a lot of problems.
Well, I'm on that one too.
I am not.
Yeah, Dan's against us.
I am decidedly not. I have Duke in the Final Four, so I guess I'm buying their recent hot streak, and also don't have a rotten taste in my mouth whenever I talk about Duke. So yeah, that's where I'm going. But I have been burned before by an early Duke exit, so it would not be something I would be unaccustomed to.
I have no sympathy for you.
And
I respect that.
With that, we are going to say goodbye to our good friend Tim Fitzgerald. Go find all of his staff and his great work over at GoPowerCat.com, covering K-State's run throughout the NCAA tournament, including their opener against Montana State coming up on Friday night. Go follow all of Fitz's great takes as well on Twitter at Life of Fitz. Fitz, we appreciate the time. Enjoy watching Surrounded by Basketball at home this weekend, and hopefully we're talking nothing but good things for the Cats coming up next Wednesday.
Thank you, boys. Hopefully we'll have a second game to worry about, then a third game, and see how far this thing goes.
And we're going to hope for the best. Appreciate the time, Fitz.
You bet.
That is Tim Fitzgerald from GoPowerCat.com. Fantastic stuff, as always, from Fitz. I'm excited for K-State's run. I mean, this year, I know the players don't feel like this is house money, but I mean, when you think about the preseason expectations, it kind of is at this point. Like, this should be free and fun and loose for these guys.
I think so too. And I think that they're at their best when they play that way, when they play motivated, when they play a little bit angry, when they play with that New York City toughness and swagger that Marquise Noel can bring. I think it's in them. I think it's in them to make a deep tournament run. I've got them in the Sweet 16 as well. And Marquette's not a great matchup for them, but hey, who's to say they can't catch them on a good night? Like, anything seems possible for Kansas State. I really feel that way.
Yeah, we're all in that same boat there with K-State in the Sweet 16. We've got just 1.5 hour of 580 Sports Talk coming up after our national and local news. left. Well, really, it's not even a full hour. It's just half an hour here on 580 Sports Talk. We are off at 5:30 again today because we've got first four action coming up tonight. We're going to get you a pick for those games in just a moment. Brendan Dworzinski and Dan Lucero are here with you from Wells Fargo Arena in Des Moines, home of one of the regional sites or the opening weekend sites on the first few days of the NCAA tournament. KU here. They'll take on Howard coming up tomorrow afternoon. We'll have coverage of that game, of course, on 580 Sports Talk and Mic'd Up. Dan and I will be at the game. Obviously, we're here in the arena already as we get things started up here on or for the 2023 NCAA tournament. Coming up here this hour on 580 Sports Talk, we've also got our 580 Sports Talk headlines, plenty to get to, especially from the NFL world here today. And additionally, we are going to get you a quick final word before we head to the start of NCAA tournament play tonight. Don't forget to head to our website, 580wibw.com. That's where you can find our podcasts tab and the hour-by-hour breakdown of the show. It is also where you can find our Basketball Mayhem Bracket Challenge. Now's the time to sign up. You can edit your bracket all the way up until games start tomorrow morning. But that is right, morning. So why not get it done right now? Head to the website, fill out your bracket. All you have to do to sign up is put in your email address and a password. You can make it up. Does not matter what it is. It is free to play, free to enter. You can get then bragging rights against myself, against Dan, against Jake, against Fulton, the guys mic'd up. And if you get a perfect bracket, you've got a shot at $1 million as well. That's at 580wibw.com. Go to the green square on the left-hand side of the page where it says Basketball Mayhem, and that is where you can find our bracket challenge. And Dan is putting a link to that. If you're watching on YouTube, he just put a link to it in the YouTube feed. And if you're listening on the radio, well, again, I gave you the instructions over at our website, 580wibw.com. Of course, we're taking your comments in the YouTube comments section, sports on 580 WIBW, and of course on the text line, 785-272-9429. Since we are short on time, we're out of here at 5:30 for the first four. Let's get to some picks for the game right now before we get to our 580 Sports Talk headlines. Game number one, I believe it is, the 16 seeds. Fairleigh Dickinson taking on Texas Southern tonight. I've got Texas Southern winning this one. I know their record is worse, but they also play nothing but power teams early in the season. They essentially volunteer to play nothing but body bag games, so they just get a bunch of checks. And honestly, I get it. It's a good strategy. Fund your entire athletic department for honestly more than a year at this point.
Yeah, can't do anything but respect it. And they stunned a Grambling team that was heavily favored in the SWAC championship game. And they've been here before. They are no strangers to the first four and won a game here last year. So they are 2.5-point favorites tonight. And I will ride with the TSU Tigers as well.
Yeah, I'm with them. FDU, they're just cannon fodder. They've been to the tournament a couple of times. I saw them back in 2019. They were in Salt Lake City. They played Gonzaga, that Brandon Clark Gonzaga team. It was not close.
No.
Not for a single second of that game. Second game of the day, Nevada, which most people thought shouldn't have even been in the tournament. They will take on Arizona State. I've got the Sun Devils in this one. Forks up.
Yeah, I think Arizona State comes in playing really well. Nevada comes in not playing well. But, I mean, how many times do you see that not be in any way predictive of what happens in these first four games? That being said, I do like the vibes for Arizona State a little better. They are also favored by 2.5 points tonight. That's going to be my pick. I think the Sun Devils win one for the Pac-12.
Yeah, I don't know how many the Pac-12 is going to win in this tournament. I know you're high on Arizona going in, me not so much, but
also,
I do think they at least get one tonight.
I should also point out that I have made a solemn vow to never again pick a Steve Alford coach team to win an NCAA tournament game. After the 1 year where I picked New Mexico to go to the Final Four, and those bums lost to Harvard. Hugh Greenwood, you let me down. But mostly, Steve Alford, you let me down.
Like you mentioned, we're both on Arizona State. They're favored by 2.5. My guy over at Boydetology, he's got Nevada as a heavy favorite, 6 points.
Oh, wow.
As his personal favorite. So whether you want to bet the favorite or you want to bet the underdog, you can do so over at FanDuel.
Yes, you can. This March, take a shot at college hoops with a no-sweat bet on FanDuel Sportsbook. It doesn't matter if you're new to FanDuel or already have an account. Right now, all customers can tip off the tourney with a no-sweat bet. Just sign into your FanDuel Sportsbook account and claim yours today. Or if you're new to FanDuel, go to FanDuel.com/Lucero, Lucero, to get in on the action. And then you can bet on everything from the money line to point spreads to that 5 versus 12 seed matchup you've been eyeing. All on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. There's no better place to bet the tournament than FanDuel Sportsbook. Just go to FanDuel.com/Lucero to join now or sign into your FanDuel Sportsbook account to claim your no-sweat bet today. Make every moment more with FanDuel. You must be 21 and present in Kansas. Bonus issued is non-withdrawable bonus bets that expire 7 days after receipt. Max bonus bet $5 unless otherwise specified. Restrictions apply. See full terms at FanDuel.com/sportsbook. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino, LLC. Gambling problem? Getting help is your best bet. Call 1-800-522-4700 or visit ksgamblinghelp.com. I almost read the Iowa disclaimer on the read today. We are in Iowa,
where it is also legal to put a shekel or two on a game.
Yeah, they got a much shorter disclaimer read.
Do they really?
Yes, it's way shorter. It's like 2 lines.
Yeah, that is way shorter. That's funny. Well, I appreciate the state of Kansas looking out for its people. I do appreciate that. Without further ado, let's get to some of our 580 Sports Talk headlines for today. We do have plenty of them. I want to give you a follow-up on our lead story from 4 o'clock today. The Kansas City Chiefs are not bringing back JuJu Smith-Schuster. He is on his way to the New England Patriots. JuJu's deal is for 3 years, maximum value of $33 million. So it's $11 million per year, pretty much exactly the same as Alan Lazard, who is now a Jet, who 4 for 44 for him, and also for Jacoby Myers, who got $11 million a year going to the Raiders, previously with the Patriots. Here's where things get interesting. I would have thought JuJu would have gotten a little bit more than that. I think I said on the show yesterday, 12 or 13, a little bit more than those other guys got. He's a better player right now than those other guys are. JuJu has a base value of $25.5 million. That is the base salary of his 3-year deal, including $16 million guaranteed, and he's got upwards of $7.5 million in incentives. That's a lot of incentives for a guy in a 3-year deal. $16 million guaranteed is $6 million less than Jacoby Myers got. Jacoby Myers got $22 million of his guaranteed. That's very strange to me, and it makes me wonder again, is it the knee? Is it the fact that teams just aren't very high on him? Is it the fact that the Raiders just aren't very bright, giving that much guaranteed money to Jacoby Myers when they already have Hunter Renfrow?
Is it the fact that he's a TikTok boy?
TikTok boy. That's so mean. Such a good burn. I just, that's surprising to me. I thought he would have gotten more guaranteed than at least Myers did.
I did. I thought that when all was said and done, he would get the biggest contract of any of the free agent wide receivers. And he's not going to get the most years, and he's not going to get the most total money, and he's not even going to get the most guaranteed. And that does surprise me. And it does make me wonder, what's in the medicals? Mm-hmm. What do they say? Our Matt Derrick, friend of the program from ChiefsDigest.com, has suggested that he kind of thinks that the knee issues for JuJu are not the kind that, they're going to scope it and fix, and he's going to be fine next offseason. He thinks that this might be more of a nagging thing that is kind of with him for the rest of his playing days. And if that's the case, then that makes it a little more understandable that maybe he didn't get a longer-term commitment or didn't get more guaranteed money. But, yeah, on the surface, it's surprising. So it makes you think there's something else that we're missing or not privy to.
So now the Kansas City Chiefs will be looking elsewhere. They've already said, or we've heard, that they believe, I think it was James Palmer, as you said earlier, who said the Chiefs think that Kadarius Toney can be a number 1 receiver. They are going to need some other bodies. No more McCole Hardman, no more JuJu Smith-Schuster, and no more Justin Watson as well from last year. They got MVS, Kadarius Toney, and that is it at the receiver spot. So they'll have to add someone at some point.
And the suggestion from the text line from the 785 that the market looked at JuJu Smith-Schuster as somebody who was being thrown to by Patrick Mahomes. So maybe there's a Mahomes tax built in. Like, okay, yeah, you put up these numbers. He put up big numbers early in his career with a Hall of Famer with Ben Roethlisberger, and he put up those numbers with a Hall of Famer last year with Patrick Mahomes. What is he going to do with Mac Jones throwing him the football next year? Like, that is, point. It's an open question. What does it look like if he doesn't have a Hall of Famer throwing to him? So that's certainly something that could have played a role as well. First headline for me, we got to get here, man. It's the biggest sports story of the day.
All right.
I'm sorry. We have to do it. Quarterback Aaron Rodgers said Wednesday on the Pat McAfee show that he intends to play for the New York Jets this season. He said he made the decision last week, and he's not holding up a trade, which has yet to be finalized between the Packers and the Jets. But Rodgers, currently under contract with, employed by the Green Bay Packers, said he wants to play for the New York Jets. And now it's incumbent on the Jets and the Packers to work through the final stages of a potential deal. The Packers are more than willing to move on from Aaron Rodgers, but they want to make sure they get fair value for a guy who was back-to-back league MVP just 2 seasons ago. I'm not going to give you a bunch of quotes from Aaron Rodgers because there is no more self-absorbed figure in professional sports at this point. But to sum it up, He claims that he was 90% leaning toward retirement, and then he went into the dark and did a lot of drugs and came out and decided he wanted to be a Jet.
I mean, I think a lot of people sometimes go sit in the dark, take a lot of drugs, and all of a sudden think they want to be a Jet, but they think they're like an airplane and they're going to jump out a window.
Right, yeah, it depends on the drug, right? Yeah, I mean, drugs lead to people making lots of bad decisions, like deciding to play for the New York Jets.
Yeah,
one of the most doomed franchises in all of sports. So, yes, there are lots of jokes to be had here, but the conclusion that many have suspected, like Diana Rossini was reporting that this was going to be the conclusion a week ago. And Trey Wingo was talking about this openly yesterday. This is not a secret, not been particularly well guarded by Aaron Rodgers or anybody. But it does sound as though the next snap that Aaron Rodgers takes in his Hall of Fame career will be wearing a New York Jets uniform. Undoubtedly a boon for the Jets, who were a playoff caliber team at every position that wasn't quarterback last season. And if Rodgers still has some left in the tank, which it's fair to assume he's at least got a little something, then he should be able to elevate that team into a contender in the AFC East. The Packers can now prepare for life without him, which I think they've been doing for some time now, and hand the reins over to Jordan Love. It doesn't have to be this messy and this dramatic and this stupid and this mind-numbing. And I think that's probably the frustrating part of it for everybody caught in the collateral of it, which includes Packer fans like you, Brendan.
Yeah, I'm happy it's just over. Like he'll be a Jet, and that's fine. And I've said it before. I'm not going to have my opinion about him or his career, what he's done, or frankly the happiness that has been created for me watching over the last 15 years and nearly every single week thinking, okay, the Packers are going to win this game, if for no other reason because number 12 is lining up under center. I've got nothing bad to say about him. He's obviously a complete weirdo, but a lot of people are weird. He probably thinks I'm weird for not, taking all sorts of weird hallucinogenic drugs. So it's, best of luck to him. No ill will, no bad feelings or anything like that. I don't know that he's going to be in New York for all that long, and I would imagine that is the hang up with the compensation. Like if the Jets knew they were getting a 2-year deal at least with Aaron Rodgers, they probably move a first round pick and they're just done with it. They say, okay, yeah, have pick number 13, it's over. But if they don't know that and he might only be around for a year, then they probably are much less willing to give up a pick that could be someone who could help them for the long term. So I imagine that's the hang up. I'm ready for Jordan Love. I have emotionally moved on. I am very excited though, because now the Packers jerseys, the Aaron Rodgers jerseys at the Packer Pro Shop are going to be discounted, and I needed a new one because my old one tore. So this is a perfect time to get that for like $50. And
perfect.
On a serious note, though, my opinion on him as a football player is never going to change, and I hope he doesn't have bad blood with the franchise so he can come back and have his jersey retired in the near future.
A couple of other NFL notes. I guess one other NFL note about it. Another famous player that is going to, it appears, find a new home. The Dallas Cowboys appear set to part ways with Ezekiel Elliott. They will release him. I think it'll be a post-June 1 cut, or did they just do it?
I believe he is just being cut.
No, he is being designated a post-June 1 cut.
I missed that.
So he was going to count nearly $17 million against the salary cap with nearly $11 million in non-guaranteed base salary. But the Cowboys will save nearly $11 million against the cap this year by designating him a post-June 1st cut. Cowboys are going to turn the reins over to Tony Pollard, which they probably should have done 2 years ago. Obviously, they franchise tagged Pollard, so he's going to be the main man in the backfield for the Cowboys next year. As far as what's next for Ezekiel Elliott, I honestly have no idea. I think he's cooked.
There's just no burst at all. And he was never a speed guy, but you watch him. There were a couple plays last year when the Cowboys would be on national TV, and you'd see Zeke break a run because there was a big hole from his offensive line, no linebackers, defensive backs in the area. Man, it looked like he was running in sand. Like he just had no zip at all when he'd get in the open field.
I do. I just think he's cooked. I think somebody will give him a look, but I think his days as a feature back are over. And frankly, I think they've been over for a couple of years, and the Cowboys are the last team to realize it. So I had no idea where he might end up. I don't think that there's I don't think he's necessarily regarded as a great locker room guy or a great leader, somebody that a team will look at and say, oh, we need this veteran presence, or, we need this guy's nose for the goal line.
Yeah.
There's a non-zero chance that we've seen the last Ezekiel Elliott play in the NFL. And if that's the truth, then the last Ezekiel Elliott play in the NFL was him lining up at center and getting knocked into next week on the final play of a playoff game. And that's funny as hell to me.
Yeah, it's extremely funny. it's the top 2 funniest play in NFL history. It's that and the Colts play. You know the one. You know exactly the play.
The
we're
fake
talking
punt.
about.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I just don't know. Like, who is looking for an older running back with no burst? I don't know. I don't know who is actually looking for a guy like that.
Somebody on the text line from the 785 says he's a utility fullback on 3rd and 1s. Hey, the Chiefs are in the market for a 3rd and 1 fullback. Michael Burton signed with the Denver Broncos yesterday. Yeah, put Zeke in for that fullback trap.
Hey, if he's not too proud to not be a running back anymore, then hell, maybe it is worth it.
Shady McCoy, Le'Veon Bell, the Chiefs have had a thing for washed-up running backs.
I do want to get to a couple other pieces of NFL news and notes for you real quick. Fletcher Cox going back to the Eagles, 1 year, $10 million. Not a huge surprise there. We also know that, and I had one other one here that I have since lost. The Browns cut Jadeveon Clowney today. Had he been on their roster by Friday, he was going to get $41 million fully guaranteed. So Tom Pelissero of NFL Network says it was always going to be a 1 year deal. They weren't going to let that happen. Would you be interested, Chiefs, as that 4th guy? Because he's nothing more than that anymore.
Yeah, like if he do something like the Dunlap deal from last year, 1 year, $8 million, I think that's a conversation worth having because I think he can still be disruptive. But I think the sizzle matched the steak with Jadeveon Clowney over the course of his career. There were some moments, there were some flashes. I remember one game when he was with Seattle that he pretty much won by himself. He scored a defensive touchdown. It was a Monday Night Football game, I think. Those moments just few and far between. The highlights were always there, but like the consistent week in, week out, game in, game out production never really happened for Jadeveon Clowney. I think his career will go down as a bit of a disappointment.
Pass rush bursts and moments were there, but never really, consistent with it. Really good off the edge, has made a lot of money in his really good defending the run off the edge. He's made a lot of money in his career. Does that remind you of another recent former Kansas City Chief? He's Frank Clark, except he didn't play for a winner.
I don't think he ever had a year as good as Frank Clark's big year in Seattle.
You might be correct about that. I got to pull this up. I don't remember if he ever got to double-digit sacks. Clowney's been a good player. If he had been a 2nd round pick instead of the number 1 overall pick, people would say, oh, yeah, Clowney's been great. He's been awesome. But when you're the number 1 overall pick and you have, the college football highlight of the last 15 years, people expect more than a career-high 9.5 sacks.
Yeah, never even a double-digit sack season. No. Clark at least had that 15-sack year.
Yeah, that's true. He was an all-pro in a year where he only had 6 sacks. 2nd-team all-pro. How did that happen? I have no idea.
That's strange.
That'll do it for our 580 Sports Talk headlines on this shortened edition of this Wednesday show. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back, finish things up with the final word after this. What do you say we wrap up this edition of 580 Sports Talk with Brendan, Dan, and Kyle with a quick final word? Dan, you're up first.
I wouldn't worry about the level of readiness for the Kansas Jayhawks going into tomorrow's action here at Wells Fargo Arena. I think they are going to be locked in, and I suspect that they will play very well and make something of a statement with how they perform against the Howard Bison tomorrow afternoon.
I've got a twofer for you in terms of my final words. So I guess it's final words today. One, KU, I think, is going to be just fine against Howard, whether Bill Self is out there coaching or not. I think the return of Kevin McCullough is the most important thing KU can have for this matchup in particular. I don't think they'll have too much of a hard time running Howard off the three-point line, and I think KU will end up covering that 22.5-point spread. Some people got it at 21, not to say who. Second one I've got for you, final word for today. Aaron, thanks for the memories. I know it's easy to joke, and I'm going to participate in the jokes here in the near future as well. But no, it was a very fun 18 years, 15 as a starter for Aaron Rodgers in Green Bay. And now I will no longer try to do the bit that says Aaron Rodgers is as good as Patrick Mahomes, because right now he is not, and it is not even close. So Chiefs fans, there you go. We've got coverage of the first four coming up here at the bottom of the hour. First game of the day, it'll be Fairleigh Dickinson versus Texas Southern, and then Nevada versus Arizona State coming up later on tonight. We'll be back tomorrow starting at 3 o'clock following the KU versus Howard game here in Des Moines. Game will probably go just a little bit beyond when we are supposed to be on the air, but we'll be with you starting at 3 o'clock one way or another, recapping the game, getting ready for K-State later on this week, taking a look at other action from around the NCAA tournament, and so much more. That begins tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Don't forget to go join our Basketball Mayhem Bracket Challenge, 580WIBW.com. You only have until games start tomorrow, so go fill it out. Sign up right now. It's free, and a perfect bracket could earn you $1 million. For Kyle Manthe on the board, for my partner Dan Lucero, I'm Brendan Dworzinski. We'll take a break. We've got first four action coming up on 580 WIBW.